In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the thermostat on this Honda Civic. If you need this or any other part for your car, check us out at oneauto.com. Let's get started. Underneath the front of the vehicle, you'll see that there's a cutout in the splash shield. Inside this cutout, you'll be able to reach the drain plug and unthread it. Have a collection bucket underneath, of course, to catch the fluid. This coolant will start draining at this point. Don't remove this all the way because it'll start shooting straight out the back, but just let it drain. To speed up the draining process, remove the radiator cap by twisting it counterclockwise until it stops and pulling it off. Once it's done draining, close the petcock. Make sure that's nice and snug. And just take something that'll absorb the drippage, that way it can stop dripping all over the ground once you remove your drain pan. Now that it's done draining, let's cap off the radiator again. That way no debris gets in there and it stays sealed up. Let's remove the upper radiator hose so that we can push it out of the way to get better access to the thermostat housing down here. I'm going to take some pliers, squeeze on the upper radiator hose clamp and pull this off. If the hose is stuck, which often happens, you can take a pick or anything that'll get underneath it without breaking it, just to break that seal. All right. There we go, pop that off, push it aside. Now we can get much better access to this thermostat housing. I'm going to remove this 10mm bolt first, which is one of the two holding on this bracket. This down here is going to be that second one. I'm going to speed things up with my air ratchet. Okay, that fell on the floor, that's all right. Okay, so with that aside, we can see the two bolts holding on the thermostat housing. Both of these are 10mm in size. I'm going to break them free and then remove them the rest of the way. Now grab the thermostat housing and pull it off, and right there is your thermostat. Sometimes these get a little stuck, so I'm going to take something to pry it with. I'm just going to grab the pliers that I had earlier. There will be coolant behind it. There we go. There's your thermostat. Now, the new thermostat does not come with a gasket. The gasket is a separate thing, and this old one, although reusable, I don't recommend it. I recommend just installing a brand new gasket with your new thermostat. The way you know how to install this gasket is there's going to be a cutout here, a round cutout. That needs to go around this little bleeder valve. Otherwise, if you put it on wrong, it won't be able to move and function. At the same time, on the other side of the gasket, you'll see two dimples. These have to be facing down towards the spring area, not towards the top. All right, make sure that is fully seated. Twist it in whichever direction it needs to twist to be centered up. And just make sure it's not caught anywhere, not peened over or anything. That looks perfect. On this side of the thermostat housing, you can see there's quite a bit of corrosion. So what I'm going to do now is just take a scraper and scrape off all of this corrosion. You don't have to get it looking perfect, you just have to get it clean. Wipe off any debris that was caused by cleaning. If you don't have a scraper, you can also use a razor blade. That is going to be perfectly fine for this. The razor blade will clean off the corrosion without damaging the aluminum. Take the new thermostat, make sure you install it with this valve facing upwards. This is so that air can bleed out of the system easier. I'm going to have to hold it because it won't really stay. And put this part of the thermostat housing on. There we go, start the two bolts. If you had a leak here and these are very corroded, replace them because they're small and they will become weak. The torque on these two bolts is 88 inch-pounds or 7.4 foot-pounds. If you're unable to torque them, make sure they're nice and snug by hand. Let's get this bracket back on here and install the 2 bolts that hold it. .2 foot-pounds is the torque for these, and that converts to 87 inch-pounds. Get the upper radiator hose back on. Grab pliers and push this clamp back on to its location. I like to line these up with exactly where it came from before so that it gives it the best chance of sealing up, since the hoses are kind of molded to where the clamp was. Also, if it feels weak, replace it because you will have a leak here. Now let's fill up the cooling system, remove the radiator cap. I have this special funnel that I'm going to install here. This will help me bleed the system and of course fill it without spilling. It has an adapter that goes on the radiator and the funnel goes right into it. This will help me bleed the system a lot easier because this will now be the highest point in the cooling system, and the air will naturally want to rise into the funnel and exit obviously up top instead of getting trapped in the system. Now I'm going to add the appropriate type of coolant until the funnel is about 1/4 of the way full. Then I'm going to start the vehicle, let it run, let that water pump circulate the coolant through, and then once it's done bubbling, I know that the thermostat has opened and everything is full of coolant. Okay, it stopped bubbling. I'm going to fill the funnel just a little bit more, and at this point I'm going to start the engine. Like I said, let it run and warm up. Once you're in the vehicle, start the engine. And we're just going to let it run and idle so that it can warm up. On the HVAC side, I like to put the heat all the way on high, and I recommend this with the blower on low and have it set to vents. That way you can feel when the heat starts blowing through the vents, and you want to make sure that heater core gets full of coolant, of course, and doesn't have air pockets. Because if it does have an air pocket, you're not going to have heat in the car and you're going to have air trapped in the cooling system. So now we're going to just let this warm up, and we'll come back in a few minutes. You want to watch that temperature gauge and make sure it goes up to the halfway point but doesn't go anywhere past it. If it does, most likely there's an air pocket in the system. You're going to have to shut it off, let it cool down, and start again. Once you're done bleeding, if you squeeze on the upper radiator hose just a little bit, plug the funnel, and then remove it, you'll spill a little bit, but not as much as you would if you didn't do that, because there would be coolant right here. Now I'm going to pull this away and put the rest in my overflow container, which is actually almost full, so I can't put too much in it. But for now, I'm going to cap the radiator back off. Put the rest in here. Perfect, right up to the max line, which you can see on the side of it. Make sure you thread that cap back on and clean up anything that's spilt. There you go, take it for a road test. I hope this video was helpful, and if you have anything to say, leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can stay up to date with all of our latest content. Thanks for watching.